Hey everyone, and welcome back. Get ready to dive into something that's both ancient and, incredibly relevant to us even today. We're going deep on the power of symbols in religion, spirituality. Like, do we really need physical things, objects, to connect with something as, well, as vast as God? What do you think?
It's a question that's really fascinated theologians, philosophers, like for centuries,
Mm-hmm.
And what's so interesting to me is that humans across, well, I'd say across time and cultures have felt this urge to represent the divine through something physical. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like our brains need that, ladder to climb to where an idea is as grand as God.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about like ancient relics here, right?
Yeah.
Think about rituals, baptism, for instance. Even just the architecture of sacred spaces, it all makes the spiritual feel real, tangible.
Exactly. Take the Ark of the Covenant, for example. For the Israelites, this wasn't just some pretty box.
Right.
Just picture yourself wandering in the desert after generations of slavery. The Ark, with all the rituals and reverence around it, that would have made God's presence, I don't know, more concrete, real, in a way that just believing, abstractly couldn't do.
So it's less about God needing a place to like hang out and more about us needing something, I don't know, solid to grasp.
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. We're visual sensory beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Ark acted as that, it gave them a focal point, a bridge between them and their faith.
Which makes sense, but then it also brings up another thing. One of our sources quotes this passage that's always kind of bugged me. "Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What kind of house will you build for me, says the Lord?" If God's power is limitless, why do we feel like we need to, contain it in a box?
Yeah, it's powerful, right?
Yeah.
Reminds us that, we can't put God in a box.
Yeah.
But those symbols, clearly, they resonate with people, don't they? Almost like we're hardwired to look for those, I don't know, connections, even if it's just a, small reflection of something so much bigger.
So then how do we make sense of these two things? Like, if God isn't stuck in some, I don't know, golden box, why did the Ark matter so much to them? And why do symbols still hold so much, I don't know, power for so many people even today? It's like, we need that physical thing, right, to tap into the spiritual side of things, even if, we get that God's way bigger than that.
Right.
And that makes me think about, speaking of the Ark, there's this wild story, right, about the Israelites trying to use the Ark of the Covenant, get this, as a weapon.
Oh, yeah. It's really fascinating. It shows how even the holiest symbols can get twisted.
Yeah.
The Israelites, they were facing, like a military threat. And they thought, hey, we've got the Ark. We can totally use this to win.
Wow.
It shows how, even with the best intentions, our human brains, we don't always get it right.
You'd think after seeing what God can do, they wouldn't try to, literally use the Ark like that.
Yeah, but it shows how, I don't know, how we try to, bridge that gap, between the physical world and the spiritual. But they lost. And I think that just shows that the Ark's power wasn't some, magic trick. It was God's presence and their promise to him, their covenant, trying to use it, I don't know, for their own gain without real faith. Well, it backfired.
So getting stuck on the object itself, the art, is like missing the point.
Exactly. And this brings us to, I think, a crucial point in our whole discussion about symbols and God, Jesus. One of our sources talks about how Jesus changed things, shifted the focus inward to a more personal experience of God. It was all about spirit and truth. Those were his big things.
So he was saying the real connection isn't about rituals and objects. It's about having a relationship with God that's, I don't know, deeper, more real, more internal.
Yeah, definitely. Jesus often used, physical things, situations as examples. Think about that time with the Samaritan woman at the well, right?
Yeah.
He takes this well, something that keeps you alive physically, and uses it to show a different kind of thirst, that spiritual longing that only God can quench.
And it's about way more than water, right? Jesus, a Jewish man talking about deep stuff with a Samaritan woman, back then that was unheard of. It's like he's saying, look, true worship, it's bigger than all that.
Totally. And, Jesus never said rituals or symbols were bad. He did them too.
Yeah.
But he wanted people to understand, to get that real worship comes from the heart. It's about love, real love for God.
It's like, okay, you can have a beautiful instrument, right? But the real power is in the music, the feelings it brings out.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. And it shows what can go wrong if we focus too much on the symbol itself. Idolatry, right? Our sources talk about this, give a warning from, the Old Testament. The bronze serpent.
Oh, right. Something about snakes and, healing. Remind me about that one.
So God tells Moses to make a bronze serpent. Right, like a statue, as a way to like cure the Israelites who are getting bitten by snakes in the desert.
Yeah.
All they had to do was look at it, and they'd be healed. At first, this symbol, it represented God's mercy, his power to heal. But years later, people started worshiping the bronze serpent itself.
So even something made at God's command, a symbol of his power, could become like a distraction from actually worshiping him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reminds us to always check ourselves, our intentions. Are we using these symbols to remind us of something bigger, or have they become the main thing?
It's a tough balance, isn't it? Like recognizing the power of these things, but not letting them become the whole point. So how do we do that? How do we use symbols in a good way without crossing that line? Like, I don't know. You got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
See the beauty in these religious symbols, but not let them, I don't know, become the only thing you're worshiping. So how do we do that? Our sources, they say that how we feel about symbols can actually change, like as we grow in our faith.
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes me think about those stages of spiritual development we were talking about. Like symbols, they can be really helpful, especially at the beginning. Someone who's brand new to faith, right? They walk into a cathedral, all that beauty, or they see a ritual all serious and powerful, and it just hits them, brings them into this sense of awe.
Yeah, like those symbols give them a place to start, a way to understand something they're just starting to learn about. Like, it's like when you're learning a new language. You need the basic words, the grammar, before you can get the poetry. Right?
Exactly. And when you're with other people in a group, these symbols make you feel like you belong. Everyone's saying a prayer together, focusing on the same text, the same image. It's powerful.
Yeah, it gives them a shared language for their faith. But you said earlier that as we go deeper, we might not need to rely on those external symbols so much.
That's right. A lot of mystics, spiritual teachers, they talk about moving away from the rituals, the objects, and having a more direct experience with God.
So it's less about seeing as believing and more about just knowing deep down.
Exactly. It's not that those outward expressions become meaningless, not at all. They can still make you feel reverence, connection, but where that connection comes from, it changes. It's not outside anymore. It's inside you.
This makes me think about something we talked about before, about Jesus being that bridge between heaven and earth and how he was all about spirit and truth, that inner experience. So if Jesus is that bridge, does it change how much we need other symbols?
That's the question, right? If we see Jesus as the ultimate symbol, God with us, it makes you think about all symbols differently. Are they helping us understand his message, his life, his teachings better? Or are they getting in the way?
It's like we keep coming back to this, throughout our whole conversation. Don't get stuck on the symbol itself. See what it really means. The Ark of the Covenant, the bronze serpent, even the things we do in our own faith traditions. The real change happens when we let those symbols open us up to something way bigger than us.
Beautifully said. A lot to think about, right? How do we make sure those symbols keep inspiring us, guiding us on our own journeys, without hiding the very truths they're supposed to show us?
That's the question, right? And something I'll definitely be chewing on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody. It's been, fascinating, wouldn't you say? Until next time, keep those questions coming and keep exploring.